Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unmistakable Conversations. My name is Sheree Singleton, and I am the founder of the Queen Singleton Foundation, and I'm also the author of a book called My Journey from Depression to Manifestation. And as we've been talking about since last month, we took a little break, but we're back again. I'm talking about the book and what all people can do to get assistance and to get help for anxiety and depression. So today's topic, we're going to be about how to get started. And I chose this topic because lately we've been talking about depression. The last feed that we did, we talked about what depression is. And sometimes people are like, okay, I know I feel bad. I know I have these things going on, but what can I do to get help? So that's one of the things that we want to cover today in the first half. And then the second half, if anybody has any questions or anything like that, they can message me, and we'll try to answer the questions during the feed. So the first thing I want to talk about is how do I get started? So as I talked about before, one thing that I knew is that the first thing I did was I really realized that I needed help. And one of the things happened is that I really saw the problems that I was having as an adult. And I knew that the pain that I was experiencing, I didn't want to experience it anymore. So what I did is one day I just sat down and I started to just write different things down. And out of everything that I was experiencing, I said, okay, I want to be able to get some assistance. I want to be able to get help. So what can I do? And out of all of the things that I wrote down, one of the things that I started with was getting therapy. For me, that was a touch and go subject because I had started therapy before, but I didn't stay in therapy. And it wasn't that I no longer needed it. It was just that I wasn't consistent with it. So I had already been diagnosed with depression and anxiety, but it wasn't something that I was willing to accept because I kept wanting to know why I was depressed, why I was going through this, and why, basically why me. So for me to decide on getting therapy, it was a decision that I made. And then it was a decision that I knew that I would have to hang in there in order to get some help, in order to get some results and to start to see things clearly. So I called a therapist, and when I made that first initial phone call, it was something that immediately I felt relief. She just began asking me a couple questions, and as she asked me the questions, I just started talking. And from then, we scheduled an appointment, and I went in. For my first appointment, and probably for the first few appointments, I basically just released. I really released, I let things out, and I let things go because I really just wanted to, get some assistance and to get help. So that's one of the ways. One of the ways is that, you can recognize what's going on and you can go and then you can get help, yourself. Another way that you can start to get help with depression, and let's say you may be a little nervous and you may not be sure what the first step is. Most employers have a program, and it may be different names in the program, but they generally have a program where you can go and you can get some assistance if you're struggling with mental health. And for my job where I called and got the information, and you are allowed to get sessions. And with those sessions, you can, I think most employees give you like 5 free sessions or whatever. So you can use those 5 sessions just to kind of give you like a start and give you like a building block, what to do or whatever. So that's another way you can go. So the first one would be you can go yourself. You can just call therapists and, find out that way. Another step is you can go through your employer. And then now another step is that you can actually just look on the back of your insurance card for those who have insurance. And they have something on the back of your card, and it may just say mental health. And you can call that number. And with that number, they would then give you some therapists, counselors, psychiatrists that's in your area. And in your area, you can call those different doctors and psychiatrists so that you can set up an initial appointment. And once you set those things up, you can, go, they'll let you know if you have a copay, what your copay is, and things like that. Another way is to basically, you can Google what therapist you would like to see. So even though I called my employer in the beginning, I also Google depression, and I Google therapists. And one of the therapists my therapist that I found, I actually found by using Google. So I went and I actually looked at several therapists before I actually made the first phone call. And after I did that, I read each person's description. So on the internet, they have a good description of what the therapists specialize in. Some of them may specialize in family therapy. Some of them may say they have experience in depression, anxiety. Some of them may say weight control. They have a lot of different things that they may specialize in. So that's one of the best ways to get information. And kind of once you start reading the descriptions, you can look to see, okay, this is someone that I would like to meet initially and things like that. So once you do that and you call and make the initial appointment, I have found that sometimes people are generally afraid and they're nervous about making that first appointment. So one thing that you can do is try to see if a trusted friend can go with you so that you do not feel as alone. They will not be able to go in the session with you, but at least you can have somebody to accompany you to the appointment. And I actually offered this to someone today actually, and she said yes. So I think that's one of the things that will probably help people is to know that, if I'm feeling alone, or if I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, or if I think I may not make the appointment, or if I may cancel. If I have somebody else that's going with me, this is kind of my accountability partner. And then they will make sure, okay, I need somebody to go with me just to make sure I take this initial step. And 9 times out of 10, if you have somebody that you would like to go with you and you explain to them why, they probably would do it. If this is somebody, that's a friend or, a relative or just a trusted person that you would like to go with you. Another thing that you can do is, you can also call some of the helplines. And when you hit Google and they bring up these numbers, you can just call the hotlines, and then they as well can give you somebody in your area that you would like to go to. I found somebody near my work area, so I used their address because I wanted the flexibility to go on my work hour or my lunch hour. So you can give them the address and the zip code to where you would like to go, and then they can find you somebody in that area. So those are just kind of some of the ways that you can get started, because I know a lot of times that first step is generally the hardest thing, because it's like, I know I need help, but what can I do so that I can get the help that I need? So therefore, continuing to press forward. If you see other things that you would like to do and you know that you're afraid, know that it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're weak, and it doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that, yes, I need to extend this olive branch, and if somebody could please help me. If you would like for me to go with you to the appointment, just let me know when your appointment is. Like I told the young lady today, I am more than welcome. I am more than happy to attend with you so that you can at least make that first step. A lot of times, it's like I said, it can be a scary time, and you just may want somebody to receive, to tag along with you. So one of the other things that I went to a discussion last week, this week just passed on Friday, and we were talking about depression, and we were talking about just a lot of things about depression, like what it is and how do it affect people, what kinds of depression there is, and different things like that. And one of the one of the remarkable things was that we really just sat there and had a conversation. And I'm seeing now that it's so many more people who want to have the conversation regarding depression. And I think that the more, not I think I'm seeing now that the more people that we are having this conversation with, I believe the more people are going to get help, because now it's something that's just widespread. It's not just something that's going on with one person. This is something that's going on with many. I saw a post on Facebook about the president at University of Penn who committed suicide yesterday. And it was something that was very troubling, because it just brought up of the pastors and the young children and everybody that's committing suicide. And it doesn't matter who you are. You're not a respected person's, meaning that it can touch anybody. It can happen to anybody. So sometimes people want to say, oh, they're smiling, so that means that they don't, they can't be depressed. And no, that's not true. It doesn't matter. It does not matter who you are, where you work, where you live, where you attend church. It doesn't matter. It can affect anyone. And one of the things that, someone said to me was like, you're smiling all the time. I didn't even know you were depressed. And that's because I was wearing a mask. Those closest to me, they knew that I was suffering. They may not have known the exact details of my suffering, but they could tell from my behavior. They could tell about my environment that I was really in trouble and that I was really suffering. So a lot of times we have to be able to look at our environment and see, okay, is this something that I need help with? Is this something, that I can deal with on my own? Or is this something that I need to seek assistance and help for? So another thing that we covered in that discussion on Friday was just, where do we go from here? So once you make that initial diagnosis and once you begin to receive help, one thing that I found is that once you leave the office, the most important part is when you come home. Because when you're sitting there in the wee hours of the night and you're sitting there and you're crying, you're upset, or something in life happens and that situation is now making you depressed, what coping skills do I have to get over what I was dealing with, or to get over what I am dealing with? And that was another thing that people say is, okay, I went to church, I did this, I did that. So now what can I do to say, okay, I'm dealing with this? So those are the things that I want to cover now. So one of the first things that I found that helps for me is journaling. And one of the reasons why journaling helps is because you're actually getting the thoughts that you are having in your head, you're actually getting them out on paper, because you can actually sit down and take a moment and put that down. You're actually releasing. So journaling became a form of release for me. And it wasn't something that it was a stranger to me. I had journaled before, but during that year, it really was something that I really took advantage of. And journaling became something that I had to do on a daily basis. Even if I just woke up and said, today I'm just grateful. And if I didn't have anything else to say, that was fine. But at least I journaled that I did something. If something happened and I could not get everything together in my head and I needed to put things down on paper, I journaled, because that helped me to get out what I needed to get out. So that's one of the things that you can do. Journals, you don't have to buy a special journal. This is just one of the journals that I use. I use this. I use it for Bible study. I use it for journaling. I use it in several capacities. But at the time that I first initially started, I just had one journal that I had at home and that I just used at that time. And then as things progressed, I had a journal that I just kept in my bag and I would just write whenever I needed to. So depending upon your needs and depending upon how much you see that you need to release, then I would say that's what you should do for your journal. You can either leave one at home or you can carry one with you. A journal doesn't have to be a special book. Me, myself, I just like journals. So I generally just get I think this probably was like maybe $3 from the store. But you don't have to get one from there. You can get a regular composition book from You can get one from the dollar store, get one from state, wherever. Where you purchase it from is really not important. The important part is that you get one and that you start from there. Journaling can also help you as you look back and you see, okay, this is where I was then. When you look back and see how far you've come, that's one of the ways to show yourself that either I'm stuck or I'm moving forward. And a lot of times we are very hard on ourselves, but then when you go and you read and you see how far you have come, you can say, wow, now it's not just something that's in my head, but this is something that I'm actually seeing because I've documented where I was versus where I am today. So that's one of the things that really helped me out, which was journaling. Another thing that helped me out is breathing exercises. So one time I was at therapy, and my therapist wanted me to try out this breathing exercise, and I just really like didn't think that it was going to work. And so I was just kind of like, breathing fast, like, but it wasn't something that I was really paying attention to. It wasn't really something that I was giving my all. And while we were sitting there, she said, no, I want you to, like, she really made me breathe. She didn't say anything. She just sat across from me until I began to breathe. And the more I breathed and the more I really got into what I was doing, that's when the breathing really affected how I was feeling, and I was able to control my breathing. And as I began to get control over my breathing, she said that the lines that I had in the top of my forehead were gone. At the end, I felt better. And one of the things that I knew for myself was that I wanted to be at a place where if something happened and I was in a situation, I would be able to calm myself down. I would be able to do something right then and there and in that moment so I can say, okay, I am feeling better. I have something that I can tangibly use to get through this difficult moment that I am experiencing. And after that, breathing was one of the things that I could do. I could do them wherever I was for how long I needed to. And it wasn't an issue. I could close my eyes. I could practice my breathing until what I was feeling began to dissipate. And what I learned is that that's something that I need to continually do. So that's something that I do on. I used to do it every day, and now I've gotten to the point where I probably do it like maybe a few times a week. So whenever it's needed. So that's another thing I think with your body, when you become more self-aware of what your body needs at that time, then you're able to sit back and you're able to learn more about yourself. And in the process of me becoming aware of myself, that's when I realized like how important it was for me to get control of not just my breathing, but other things that was going on in my physical body. So, like we said, the first thing was journaling, and then the other thing was breathing. I just mentioned self-awareness. So this kind of comes in with how can I say it? Becoming self-aware for me helped me to learn not just what was going on with my body physically, but it helped me to know what was going on with my body mentally. And it also helped me to know what was going on spiritually. So the process of becoming self-aware, if you can imagine just sitting down and just closing your eyes and just imagining you looking at yourself as an outer body experience. And it may seem weird, but close your eyes and just kind of picture who you are from the outside. And you kind of picture what's going through your own mind. And that's how I began the process of becoming more self aware. The time that I spent by myself in deep thought, I paid attention to what I liked and I journaled it. I paid attention to what I disliked and I journaled it. I paid attention to what was a trigger for me and I journaled it. And I paid attention to my environment and my atmosphere, and I journaled it. So most of the times it always looked like a big bubble with all of these different lines coming from it. And then at the end of each line, I had a circle. And those circles had information in them. So, for example, one thing I realized about myself is that I had a lot of triggers. And when I'm going through a season where I was depressed, I needed to know what are these triggers? Like, what if I'm doing okay for 3 weeks, for 3 months, what happens that all of a sudden sends me in a downward spiral? And what triggered, like, what was that one thing that triggered something that led to the downward spiral? And I started to write. So one day I was financially strapped, and I became so frustrated because I realized that financially I'm living paycheck to paycheck. So what could I do? Like, why was this something that was about to really, because the situation has, like, my financial situation had been the same, but what was it about this specific incident that really had me so depressed about my finances? So as I continued to journal and to really document what it was the lack of control. And when I looked at my lack of control and how I felt about it, that was at the core of me being unsatisfied with my finances. So from there, that led to me to know, okay, that was my trigger. It wasn't so much the financial situation, but at the core of it and at the bottom of it, it was me experiencing lack of control. So that's what I mean by, like, the self-awareness is never just what you see on the outside. So if you can picture a tree, you picture all of these leaves, and then you have all of these branches, they connect to the bark of the tree, and then the tree's outer part, it goes underneath and it has all of these roots. So the leaves is just what we're showing on the outside, but they are connected to the bark of the tree, the body of that tree, and the roots. That's the part that's underneath. So that's the part that I needed to get to in becoming self-aware. I had to go underground, and I had to get to the root of all of the different things that I was experiencing. So when I say journal, when I say find out what different triggers are, the more you do it, and it's not something that happens overnight. This is something that happens piece by piece. And if you know something about yourself and you want to say, okay, I want to go deeper than that, just continue to write, continue to brainstorm, continue to see, okay, where did this come from? And one of the things you have to do with the depression is just be honest with yourself. And that's really what anything that you go through in life, you really have to be honest with yourself. And with you being honest with you, you will see that out of everything that you're going through, when you finally get down to the root, you'll be like, wow, that really makes a lot of sense. And that's what it was. When I got down to the root of a lot of different problems, it all made a lot of sense. So I want to see if anybody has any questions. They can put them on Facebook. I'm on Facebook Live. If you have any questions that you would like to ask, you can put the questions on there. We are about to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back.